Well, welcome out there once again to my show. Always a pleasure to be here. It's always nice to have a guest, of course, and I have someone who is very interesting. This person has been around the city of Fall River, very active for many, many years. 8, 9, maybe 10 years. If anyone is familiar with the LNG project or the coalition that kept the LNG tanks from locating in the North End, will be very familiar with my guest. He was a president of the organization for about, well, he'll tell us, and during his reign of terror for SLNG, he was the one that kept everything going, traveling here, traveling there, a person that held many, many meetings, conferences, got the politicians and others involved, people with technical knowledge, even scientific knowledge, in regards to what a disaster LNG in tanks down at the north end of Fall River could be. So, right now he's running for the mayor's job of the city of Fall River, so I guess he's just going from one difficult project to another difficult project. Being the mayor of Fall River is something he desires to be. So welcome, Joe Carvalho, to the program. Nice to have you on.
Thank you, Richard.
Took a while to get you here. Busy man.
Appreciate the invitation.
Things, I know you're involved in a lot of other projects. Tell us, give us a little background, Joe, of your life.
Well, born and raised in the Flint. Went to Espiritu Santo school, Catholic school, parish school. Entered into the, graduated from Durfee High School. Went into the Army in 1966. Spent a year in Vietnam, came back and did one more year stateside. Used the GI Bill to go to then Southeastern Mass University. Upon graduation, started work with the Department of Youth Services and held a lot of different positions in social service agencies. Also did school to career at 3 different high schools in the Boston suburbs for about 8 or 9 years. And then finished a grant position at Bristol Community College here in the Veteran Services Department, and then decided that I wanted to seek the office of mayor because of what I saw happening here in the city.
Well, what did you see happening in the city to make you or to have you decide to run for the mayor's job? It didn't come over. Was it something spontaneous? Spontaneous, or have you been thinking about it for a while?
It wasn't exactly spontaneous, but it wasn't some long and drawn-out process either. I saw the Coogan appointment as a major misstep.
Lieutenant to chief of the
Yes.
fire department.
Yes.
Overnight. That was amazing.
And the thing that upset me the most about that appointment was the reputation of Chief Ford. Paul Ford was the fire chief here. It was not a civil service position, served at the pleasure of the mayor. And when Chief Ford's contract was coming up, what was told to me was that the chief was making calls to the 6th floor, looking for some offer tendered to him. And when he wasn't getting any of those offers made, he decided as a family man to, and someone who needed employment, obviously.
Did you feel at that time that there was some kind of tactic, in other words, discourage Ford from actually thinking he would get the job and to get him to think that maybe he should look elsewhere, so that pretty much would open up that position?
Certainly played out that way. It looked like it was political patronage. I mean, we did know that Coogan was the president of the Firefighters Union and was responsible for putting 2 billboards on Route 195, prompting, you know, for the mayor's reelection.
So that's enough these days for a major promotion? A couple of billboards?
Not in my estimation, no. But in the political patronage field,
That's
Yes.
big stuff.
Yeah.
A couple of billboards.
Oh, yeah.
God, I mean,
That'll
imagine
do
if
it.
you put full-page ads in the paper all week long. What would you become? Governor?
Well, at least lieutenant governor to start.
Okay, well, that puts things in perspective. So people out there, you know, don't get discouraged.
Yes, that's right.
So, okay, that was one thing. And anything else that started to stir up your blood?
Well, there was also the issue of the casino.
Casino, that was, you know,
Yes.
Meditech, casino, the biopreserve, that, I mean, if anyone can figure that one out, Joe, they deserve to be mayor.
I tried to do the best I could on that.
Give us an idea what happened with that one.
Well, it looked like there was an agreement with the creation of the bioreserve that the city would give up some of its in-holdings and that 300 acres would be tendered to the city on the northwestern extreme.
And that was by legislation.
Yes, it was. But there were two provisos in that legislation. The city was free to create and build anything they wanted on those 300 acres except two things. One was a landfill, and the second was a casino. Now, casino gambling, expanded gaming, wasn't even legal at the time that the mayor, with his transparency, showed up on the front page of the Herald News with an Indian chief claiming that they were going to put a casino there.
Well, apparently they already had an agreement pretty much in place.
Yes, unbeknownst to anyone but the two of them,
And
seemingly.
they were selling land without going through any type of process.
Exactly.
There was no bidders for the land.
No.
It was just sort of a hush deal. And go ahead, Joe. Fill us in with the rest of the details.
So what happened, Attorney Rich showed up at a meeting that I was present at with a petition, a 10 taxpayer petition, asking if folks would consider, as a taxpayer in the city, signing a 10 taxpayer petition to fight the move by the city in the courts. I was one of the signatories to that petition. The city lost the court case, then proceeded to appeal it twice, using Max Stern, who's an attorney from Boston.
And who was paying for the? Who was paying for the?
Well, I submitted a Freedom of Information request about that to the law department of the city, and they sent me a response, timely, because you need to respond within 10 days, saying that the city, it didn't cost the city anything, but it cost the redevelopment authority, was the financing entity, if you will, for those two appeals, which they subsequently lost. Now there's a little backstory to this, because this was at the very time that Meditech was looking
For a place.
for a place. And I thought, even then, that might be, I mean, it's a biopark, Meditech, biopark.
Perfect fit.
You know?
Perfect company.
But the mayor had, and in my...
Someone quoted that they'd only be creating 6 jobs.
Yeah, the mayor said 8 to 12.
8 to, oh, wow.
With
Sorry.
UMass Dartmouth, the
8 to
partnership that was supposed to be
8
there.
to 12 jobs.
Yeah.
So,
And one of the spin-offs of that too, Richard, was the state then entered into the mix, if you will, and said that if the mayor was successful with the bid for the casino there, that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts would issue a bill to the city of Fall River to the
For-
tune of $38 million.
for the land?
No, for the exit ramp that had already been built,
Oh, I see, yeah.
because the state maintained that we built exit 8A or B, whatever it is, Innovation Way, for a biopark and not for a casino.
Not for a casino. Now, let me ask you this question, Joe. Meditech, do you think Meditech never located on the park land because of the machinations that were going on somewhat behind the scenes? And we lost, in other words, that company in this area?
It's certainly, you know, that's a possibility. That's one of the possibilities, sure. I know that...
Because if that land was there and it was ready, it was shovel-ready in a sense, a number of politicians in the area had worked on that over the years. Meditech was looking for another site. That site became convoluted, and you know, the things that were going on were not clear. And do you think Meditech decided, well, that's it for that piece, we're going somewhere else?
That's a possibility. I know that during that process, Representative Haddad from Somerset had set up a meeting between the CEO of Meditech, Secretary Galvin, and the Mass Historical Society to try to work out a solution, a compromise, if you will. When Mr. Papalardo, the CEO of Meditech, came to the meeting, sat down, saw the secretary, saw the Mass Historical Society, he walked out of the meeting, much to the chagrin of everybody else that was there. So I don't know what his motivation was in the first place to even want to attend the meeting, if that was going to be his actions as a result.
Now, there's been a couple of other things that are going on in the city of Fall River. The reconstruction, reconfiguration of Route 79. Yeah, do you think, Joe, let's say you know, it's your first day on a job, you're sitting on up there on the 6th floor, you get that view of the Braga Bridge, the water, all that construction going on down there. Is that a boom for the city of Fall River, or is that just you know, redoing the highway?
I think it does have the possibility of being very positive for the city, getting rid of the spaghetti ramps. I am concerned somewhat.
Do you think the people who are going over the Braga Bridge are going to keep going over the Braga Bridge?
Yes.
Head to the Cape? Do you think that they'll say, well, you know, there's nothing to come into the city for? I mean, we can get into the city easier. You can get into the city easier, but what does the city have? What does the city have to offer? People want. You're sitting on the 6th floor. You know that's the concern. The traffic is still going over the Braga Bridge, heading down the Cape. What do you think you could do to stop, or get some of them to actually stop here in the city?
Well, I spoke with Mr. George Delaney, who was part of the Mill Owners Association, and he and Mr. Melian, the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, had a show on WSAR where they talked about branding the city, and this is a strategy that has worked in other areas of the country. We would need to brand Fall River in a particular way to accentuate the positives that we do have here.
Okay.
We've got a rich textile history that we haven't really fostered.
Well, people are going down to the Cape. People go over the bridge, the ones who are not actually coming into Fall River for a purpose. They go to the Cape to get some real nice beaches, get some nice parks, plenty of restaurants. There's a lot of recreation. That's what the Cape offers. Plus, you know, there are jobs down there. What does Fall River actually have to offer? Someone can stop tomorrow and enjoy the city and then spend 3 or 4 days. We don't have a hotel. We don't have a motel. I mean, are these things really 90,000 people almost? I mean, are we missing something?
Or movie theater.
No theater, no conference center. I mean, it's not good. Why isn't it good? Go ahead, Joe.
We haven't marketed the attributes that we have. And again, the rich history, you know, and we're not going to get every caravan that's loaded with a family to stop in Fall River. But even if we got every 5th vehicle to come into the city, we're looking at niches, you know, the rich history of the city. Marine Museum, Historical Society, I mean, even to the altar side, Lizzie Borden. I know I don't want Fall River to be known for the home of an axe murderer, and it is to an extent. But other amenities that we have here, the Battleship Cove, which Director King is doing a marvelous job with. And I'm concerned about that with the 3 years of waiting for the waterfront to open up again. I spoke to Mr. King, and he said that they would certainly remain open for business, and he wanted that to be known. So the marketing and the branding of the city needs to be done beyond the borders of Fall River. Need to go down to all the nooks and crannies of 95 from here to Miami, if you will.
Well, there was an informational booth one time before a driver went over the Braga Bridge. I mean, it seems almost essential that there be a stop before people actually go over the bridge, where they could find out about the city of Fall River, get some information, maybe go to the restroom, have a cup of coffee, and say, honey, you know, maybe we should do this or do that before we go to Grandma's in Wareham. But how do you do that, Joe? How do you get something like that back?
That was a state-run, as I understood it, that was a state-run rest stop and information center.
Do we need one when people go over the bridge, where it's actually in Fall River and it's not too late?
I'm not sure where that could be located. That would be a draw. I think you'd need to do it prior to, on the approach to the bridge. Where the other one was located?
Maybe at the
Closed one.
the Plymouth Avenue exit, where you could get off, go to the information booth, because across from Plymouth Avenue you can get right back on the highway again. It doesn't take you too far out of your way.
But what's going to bring them to take the Plymouth Avenue exit in the first place? That's my concern.
I guess you'd need a sign there. Information booth.
Okay.
At least that. And an enticement, restrooms, coffee. In other words, a reason for them to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're on a highway. They might have traveled a number of hours, many miles. There are no restrooms. You know, you go up 195. I don't know where you can find a restroom unless you really get off the highway. Where can you get a nice fresh cup of coffee? Get some pamphlets that might. But I understand what you're saying. Let's get to the ferry. You know, there's been a lot of discussion and publicity about a ferry that leaves Fall River. It doesn't come into Fall River, it seems. It's leaving Fall River. And a lot of pictures and people gathered down there and taunted this ferry leaving Fall River going to Block Island. People have said to me, that ferry's taking money and people out of Fall River, not bringing anything in. The dinner train, is that falling off the track? I mean, are these things real, or is this, for one newspaper for some publicity, and that's the end?
I agree with the latter. I think they're, last night at the debate, I said show and tell. There's a lot of show and tell in this administration, but it's mostly all show. The high-speed ferry, that's a misnomer. The speed limit in the bays is controlled by the Coast Guard, and even on the Taunton River. So it's $50 to go from Newport to Block Island on their ferry. So what would the cost be for an additional 25, 26 miles further up the bays and in Fall River? I don't think that that's ever going to be a reality, quite honestly. And to the point of the spaghetti ramps, how are people going to access a so-called high-speed ferry without any available parking down at the waterfront? That doesn't seem like a logical scheme of things, or to me.
Now, the thing that's been brought up over the years is based on Fall River having the second largest port waterway outside of Boston Harbor in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, that Fall River is actually ideally suited to have ships come in and take on cargo or discharge cargo. there's a railroad line that goes down to the state pier.
Mm-hmm.
And if ships came in, if there was an actual real big terminal, that would bring people in, and that would promote a lot of commercial business, and of course create some jobs. Any ideas on that?
Yeah, it's usually referred to as short sea shipping,
Yeah.
and I'm glad I said that without stumbling, and I won't say it 3 times fast. But it seems like Quonset Point and Davisville have already robbed that particular.
Taking that opportunity away.
Oh boy, and they got a lot of stimulus money to do that. If it's a small, the container ports is what people are talking about. I don't know if it would be feasible financially for somebody to have a small niche container port somewhere near the state pier.
Well, let me ask you this: we got some program time left, but well, New Bedford has, I guess, the largest fishing port in a sense, as far as catch.
Mm-hmm.
In the United States. I mean, it's huge. It's hard to believe. I mean, it's only next door.
Exactly.
And I don't know what the water, if the water over there is any different than what we have here with a major port. What seems to be the reason why Fall River doesn't have a major fishing industry? We're right off the ocean.
It may be again. And I'll say this, it's 26 miles from the Battleship Cove to open ocean, past Newport. New Bedford doesn't have that kind of land.
Shorter?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're out the locks, the hurricane locks. They're there, and again, I think they've captured that niche for themselves. So I don't know that there's enough. I know that the Georges Banks has been overfished, obviously. We've lost tons of fish, the depleted stocks and so forth. So I don't know how feasible that would be to have that going at the city pier. One of the things, speaking of fishing, is one of the plans that we had about Brightman Street Bridge, once the bascules are taken out, was to create a fishing pier on the Fall River side. And to my knowledge, there were 2 or 3 different bills that had been filed in Congress and passed that had some federal monies available to create sports fishing piers along the east coast of the United States. I mentioned that and given that information to Congressman Kennedy's office, and actually waiting for a reply from them to do some research. We need to do something with the Brightman Street Bridge. The mayor had appointed me to a task force, which met twice.
Are you still on it?
Well, it only met twice, from 2011 to October of 2013. And those meetings took place within the first couple of months.
Who calls the meetings?
Well, the mayor had assigned Alan Maycomber, local businessman, to chair the position, chair the task force. And Alan told me, when I saw him subsequently at Government Center, that he really didn't have the time to do that, and that he had told the mayor that he didn't really have the time to chair the task force. And it kind of went the way of a lot of other task forces.
Now, you, of course, pay close attention to what goes on in the city, obviously, even before you decided to run for mayor. And the last month or two, there's been a lot of publicity about, you might say, to say it mildly, outside influence on Government Center, especially the 6th floor, and especially the mayor's office. What do you think? You think it's been? You think this is something that's been overblown, or that this administration is moving itself in the wrong direction for not the right reasons?
I think it's really awful that the mayor has associated with, according to the federal court documents that I was able to obtain in Providence, from a federal prosecutor who identified Mr. Ruggiero as a member of the New England La Cosa Nostra. And for the mayor to associate with someone like that and appoint that person, Mr. Ruggiero, to the Fall River Office of Economic Development is questionable at the very least and objectionable at the most. I don't know what could motivate the mayor of a city to put someone who's got that kind of a background, and the mayor is a former prosecutor in the assistant district attorney's office and a lawyer, an officer of the court. So, and he defended Mr. Ruggiero, saying that's not the Mr. Ruggiero I know. Well, I'll make it, the 50-page testimony is available on my website in PDF form. People can go and read it.
The mayor said that this man doesn't even have a speeding ticket.
No, he doesn't. And there was a subsequent article, a series in the Herald News, where the former head of the state police in Rhode Island, undercover agency, said that this guy is a bad actor. I think his quote was, "If you sleep with dogs, you get fleas." So I don't know what the... Now, I know that Mr. Ruggiero, by the way, hasn't made any meetings of the Fall River Office of Economic Development.
And he was appointed, nominated for that board by the mayor and
Yes.
approved by the people. What do you think of the people on that board? That mayor comes in and says, "I'd like to nominate so-and-so to be a member of the Fall River Office of Economic Development," and they all say, "Hey, that's fine." Where is their judgment?
I don't think that the information about Mr. Ruggiero's past
Was available at that time?
I don't think it was, and I also don't know who was present at the voting process of the FROED at that time.
Okay, let's get to that. There's a few minutes left. Briefly, what do you think of the board itself? Do you think the board actually is doing what the city needs to have done, or is that board just picking projects that it feels it should do because it gets influenced by certain cliques?
I think it's not doing the job that its mission statement says, which is to create some kind of a friendly business environment and entice businesses to the city. The proof is in the pudding. I don't see it happening. I mean, I'm sure they want to count Rhode Island novelties as one of those gems in the works, but I don't get it. That's not really. We need to be a lot better and more aggressive than what FROED's done.
If you were mayor, what would you do with that board?
They'd be put to the side. They wouldn't be getting city money.
Would you form your own economic council?
Absolutely.
Joe, you know, it's a pleasure to have you on the program. Why don't you take a few seconds and tell the people why they should vote for you? Well,
I've got a proven record of leadership with the Coalition for Responsible Siting of LNG Facilities. We led a successful 10-year battle against Hess LNG, Weaver's Cove Energy. The coalition is still in existence. The board meets every other month. We had our annual meeting of the membership earlier this month. I'm the vice president of the Flint Neighborhood Association. We just purchased the Duval School. Had been vacant for a number of years. We're going to turn that into a community center with a lot of opportunities for people in the neighborhood, children after school tutoring, adult classes in the evening, those types of things.
Thank you, Joe. Joe Carvalho. Thank you for being on our program.
Thanks, Richard.
Nice to see you. Always
Yeah,
nice.
thank
Always a
you.
pleasure to talk
Thank
to you.
you.